Hey guys, this is Locke. In this video, we are going to be going over Adel, the king of Kara Estel, which I hope I'm pronouncing correctly. In short, he's not a bad hero, but there are only a limited number of people that can actually make use of him, in my opinion. I'm going to be going over. I have the hero, so I'm going to be going over his skills, and then I'm going to talk about when he can be used and by whom he can really be used. So let's take a look at it. Um, he's all the way at the end, I believe. Yep, right there. So let me look at his skills at level 20 and talk about it that way because I think that makes more sense to do. So we'll look at his passive first. So what his passive does is whenever you're attacking an enemy that has already been afflicted with the burn debuff, he does an additional 102% of attack when he's attacking these burned enemies. So a lot of his skills already cause burn damage. Sorry, not burn damage, but burn debuff. And if you pair him also with Rachel, then you are going to be getting a lot of stacks of burn on the enemy, and you're going to be getting it often. So most of the time, you can look at this passive as doing an additional 102% of attack on every single, like every single attack that you basically do. It's a pretty good passive in terms of pure damage. Like I would expect this to be active most of the time. Even if you're just using him by himself, I would expect it to be active most of the time. If you're using it with Rachel, there should never really be a time where you don't have a burn debuff on the boss or whoever you're attacking. So his first skill charges towards the enemy. It has an available distance of 8 meters, and it deals damage. Let's see, at level 20. At level 20, it deals 385% of damage to all enemies within a circular range, which is 6 meters around the target, and then additionally has a 40% chance of burning the target. So this is an AoE skill. So here is my first kind of like this kind of sucks in my opinion. So this is an AoE skill, right? So because it's an AoE skill, it's not really something that I'm going to be using for bosses. Like, for bosses, I really want a single target damage skill that does that has a much higher modifier. But because it's an AoE skill, okay, fine, then maybe I can use it for PvP. But I can't really, because, I could, but it's a skill that does an additional debuff, but the debuff is not like a powerful debuff. It does burn, right? And eventually maybe you can burn the target and kill them. But I would prefer something like shock, stun, like any of those like debuffs that do one of those really upsetting CC moves. Those are way better. So he's not. This move itself is not great for PvP, and it's not great for PvE either. So this is the first move about him, and I'm like, well, that kind of sucks, Like, if the debuff was something else, like it was like any other debuff, I was like, okay, he has any issues in PvP. Like he is similar to like say Fodina or something, with this one skill, and it's an 8 meter charge, whereas Fodina is like a 6 meter charge. Okay, so I can see some kind of use for him in PvP, but that's not the case. So okay, he's not good for this skill anyway. It's not great for PvP or PvE. Let's look at the second skill. Now here, at level 20, he does 771% of attack to the target, and then 100% chance of burning the target. Okay, so this is a good move for PvE because it's a single target damage, and so obviously the modifier is high, and then 100% chance of burning on top, which is also good. The cooldown is 23 seconds, and the debuff lasts for 20 seconds. So even if you have like a little bit of, actually it might not be 23 seconds, it might just be because I have some cooldown stuff on him, that might be why it's 23, but still, I don't see this skill being hard to land on the boss like 100% of the time. You really should have it even with just him. The boss would probably take the boss would probably have a burn debuff on him 100% of the time with the skill, and you combine the others, and that means that his passive will also almost always be active and do increased damage to the boss. So this is a good skill for PvE because with his kit and his passive doing extra damage, extra burn damage, and this being a single target skill, it's a good skill for PvE where you're killing bosses. Now the next skill, this skill deals the same damage as the first skill, so less than 400% of attack to all enemies within a semicircular range around the caster. and then has a 40% chance of burning the target and a 100% chance of being immune to damage. And how long is he immune to damage? This is um, the same time as Valder's skill. So, at level 20, it's 13.6 seconds. That's the same 13.6 seconds for Valder as well. But the skill cooldown, I think, is higher. Let me just quickly take a look at Valder's skill. Yeah, it's about 27 seconds, but I mean, I have better gear on Valder right now. But either way, I mean, I'm pretty sure that the skill has a much higher cooldown than Valder. So what do I think about this skill? It has its uses. Like it has its uses in PvP because he gets immunity to damage, and I kind of find that that's Valder has that going for him as well, and he's a pretty good threat with that. But I mean, everyone is kind of expecting that. Valder is around everywhere. The rage accessory is everywhere. So a lot of people that you're fighting are going to have ways to remove immunity. So I mean, it's good, but it's also because everyone has it. Everyone's always looking out for it as well, especially in the higher tiers. So it could be a kind of a PvP skill with the damage immunity part. But again, the burn debuff, it's not a PvP debuff, it's a PvE debuff because you're trying to do more damage to the boss. So it's and if this was a single target damage, like everything on the skill was the same except it was a single target damage skill, it would be so much better because like for PvE you really want to care about killing bosses. You don't really care about killing the mobs because you can do that with a lot of other units. So if you're bringing a unit along as a DPS to kill bosses in PvE, you want to bring a single target damage dealer. And he has two skills that are AoE skills, so they do less damage. It's not the best, like that's the reason why I feel like he's not that great as a PvE unit, and he's not that great as a PvP unit either. The only thing he has going for PvP is that damage immunity, but I don't think that's enough. I mean, maybe you might be able to pull off niche things, especially against people that are not expecting it and they don't have, say, Claire or something. Like if you see a Guild War defense lineup and they don't have somebody that can remove buffs, then this guy might be great. He might be great against that because he can pop the skill off and they won't be able to damage him for quite a bit of time. And then anyway, let's go on to this ultimate, and then I will talk about it a bit more. So his ultimate is actually quite nice, in my opinion. So to start off, it does 2,400 damage to the target, and it does additional damage equal to 1,000 attack for every burn stack, and that can go up to 5 burn stacks, so that can be an additional 5,000 damage. So if you look at the total attack, it could be something like 7,500 percent of attack, right? If you look at Cosette's, at level 20, even with the target on the boss, she deals about, say, 5,500. So he has the potential to do even more damage than Cosette. I mean, at least according to the multiplier on his final skill. However, like he only has one other skill that does single target damage. The other two skills are AoE skills, so they do, less damage than single target skills. So here is why I have a negative review on him, because I feel like he is kind of meant to be a PvE damage dealer, but two of his skills are AoE skills, meaning that they won't really be doing so much. You can get so much better DPS out of Cosette or Miss Velvet or Delens, because they're all single target skills and they have passives that are similar to this, right? Like they all have passives that increase their damage. And I can kind of count on this as like 100% active passive. Same with like how I would count Delens, right? Like Delens has a 100% crit chance passive. So all his crit damage basically becomes extra attack stats, right? That's similar to this guy's passive. It's just worded differently. And I mean, they work differently, but functionally they do the same thing. So I think there will be two kinds of people here. The one kind of people should all have Cosette because, I mean, you really all should have Cosette. I mean, it was given out for free. L plus Electra. I kept telling people to get it. So, if you guys have Cosette, I don't really see a reason why you would get this guy because he is supposed to be a PvE damage dealer, but he doesn't really do that job effectively. And you already have Cosette, who's a ranged damage dealer anyway. So why would you get him, right? But then there's a second case where you don't have Cosette because, I mean, either you ignored my advice or you just decided you didn't want Quizet, or you started after the event. Like I'm sure there are people that are starting the game, much later than when that event happened, right? I mean, although it was like 2 weeks ago. Sorry, was it 2 weeks ago? The event ended 16th, so the event ended yesterday. But if you started anytime within the last week, you wouldn't have enough stars to actually claim that L plus selector. So you might be in that boat. And if you're in that boat, then you have a choice to make. Like, he's not the best PvE damage dealer, but if you don't have anything better, you might, he's not bad. If you compare him to Miss Velvet, or if you compare him to Dullins, or even her legendary plus Shane, Evan, obviously, like all of these guys will have a higher damage output than the legendary Adel. However, if you don't have something better, I mean, go for it, right? Like if you're starting today and these are the banners you have available, it's going to be hard for you to just want to get Miss Velvet, because like you have to really rely on your luck to get Miss Velvet. So you might just go with Adele in that case, and he's not bad. Like he still has high damage modifiers, especially with his skill, but there are others that do the job better than him. So if you have another damage dealer, I wouldn't really get him, because like I don't expect him to outperform the other damage dealers that I talked about. But if you don't have them, if you're starting now, that's not a bad idea. Like for me, when I started, my main damage dealer was Rachel, and I would expect him to have a higher damage output than Rachel, so he's still usable. So why did I get him? I got him because of the Codex buff. Like I really wanted to fill out my Codex, and because he is a DPS type, his Codex buff will all be increasing my attack, and I really wanted to maximize on that. And now that proficiency has gone up to level 10, I can actually get even more out of the Codex buff from everyone really, but especially DPS units, because I really want to have a high attack stat. So that's the reason why I got him. But for most people, I wouldn't really recommend him. I mean, for the reasons I said above, unless you are you don't have any of the other units, unless you're like a newer player that doesn't have Cosette, or you don't have any of the other units like Miss Velvet or Talons or anything. So anyway, that's really it for my review. There isn't much else to talk about. There's a lot of content released, so I'm going to be making other videos talking about the other things, but this is just for our Adele review. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If there's something I missed about Adele, something I overlooked or something, please let me know. Actually, there's one thing I did not mention. So I've heard that later on there'll be like a new series of tower. Maybe it's like the next stage or something, like after we get to, I don't know, 100 or something, there'll be another like another set of tower that comes out, and at that tower there is an enemy that can only be damaged by burn debuff. So in that case, yeah, Adele becomes useful, because Adele and Rachel are the only two units. Maybe there are a couple of other like rare ones or something that do burn, but he will basically be the main damage dealer, dealing burn damage along with Rachel. So that might be one case that you might really want to get him for, but I don't know when that'll come out. I've heard it's like level 45, I think, and so it's quite a while from now, and apparently it's also very, very difficult. So even if you have him, you might still be having a lot of trouble actually doing the stage. So is he really necessary for that one level? And even if you have him, you need to be like at the top tier with your gear. Do you still want to get him for that? I don't know. I mean, you have to make that call. I would suggest for the majority of people, he is an easy skip, except for the things that I outlined. So that's my review on him. I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and I will see you guys next time. Take care now.